Welcome back, folks. We are joined by Jill Dennis, director, owner of Assured Supervision Accountability Program, which is all about electronic monitoring of folks. Jill, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So, Jill, there's been a lot of conversations about breakdown in communication within the system. Kind of bring us up to date as it relates to the state of electronic monitoring.
Well, I want to say we're encouraged by the new administration and that what we're doing in New Orleans is leading the way in the state. We have had laws written that makes the providers responsible and accountable to those that they're supervising, and it also makes the judges responsible for watching those violations. And what we have done in the city of New Orleans has really changed the game with the offender management system.
So, but unfortunately, well, I mean, this is the reality of any system, right? You got to make sure that everybody within the system is actually following the guidance and the rules and making sure and following up that folks are doing the right thing, right?
It is. And what we have done through Complywise, writing the offender management system, which is a patent-pending software platform that gives the courts, law enforcement, and supervision providers a shared, real-time, immutable view of all compliance violations and communications. And the reason this matters is public safety decisions are only as good as the information behind them. When our provider is reporting and that reporting is delayed, incomplete, or inconsistent, courts and law enforcement are left making decisions without a full picture of what's actually going on. And the offender management system closes those information gaps. And what it does is standardize how all supervision activities is documented and reviewed by the court, by law enforcement, by anybody investigating a provider that may not be reporting as they should. And also law enforcement. Law enforcement would be able to make better decisions because they have the full picture in real time. And that's what we want to focus on. It improves accountability. The oversight becomes consistent. It's not dependent on which provider is involved. The courts and law enforcement can immediately see who's responsible, what actions have been taken, and this current status. So all decisions, all investigations are based on fact. The accountability in it becomes transparent, and public safety isn't left to, any guesswork or incomplete violations and so forth. And right now, we're in the middle of a few active investigations where law enforcement has been spending weeks and sometimes months trying to help identify or locate either the provider or the offender that is being investigated, even though they're on an ankle monitor. And we believe that public safety can't depend on whether a provider is actually opting into OMS, and that oversight only works when everyone plays by the same rules. And again, we are encouraged by the current administration. We're working on being able to use OMS as a standard in the city of New Orleans, leading the way in the state.
So there was a happenstance that occurred several weeks ago. There's going to continue to be updates to the software that's provided. Has there been any conversations about making sure that organizations like yourself are included before they roll this out from a beta perspective to being active and actively used to make sure that everybody can see what they think they can see? Y'all have talked about this long form view that the only person that could see it was the clerk and nobody else could see it. So when the orders were coming down as to who was going to be on electronic monitoring and not, all the folks responsible for making sure that that was in place, they couldn't even see what the order was.
Well, I'm going to tell you, the current clerk has been very active in communicating with us. A lot of that transparency when it comes to the jail and the DA's office and other criminal justice stakeholders has been fixed. It's not a perfect system yet, but they're very actively working on that system. We actually have started to have someone in court and helping to make sure that those connections are being made. I know that's not the long fix of it. They really do have a good Clerk Connect system. That system is a great system. It is just making sure that everybody knows how to use it and that they're using it in a way that it is capable of being used. And that's going to be a very important step that we are, again, actively working. And Darren Lombard has been very receptive and conversating with people that are having issues in the system, whether it be providers or defense lawyers and other aspects of the criminal justice system when it comes to supervision of the defendants that are in court.
The new clerk takes office when?
I'm not 100% sure.
But hasn't yet, right? Has there been? Have y'all had conversations with the new clerk about this software and these programs and electronic monitoring?
We have not. It has been with the current clerk and the developers of the software.
Yeah. Let's pivot real quick. Let's talk about Cedric Bowser. Tell us about that case.
Cedric Bowser is actually the way ankle monitoring in the courts and law enforcement should work. We had a number of violations, and it didn't take very many. I think it was 2 or 3 violations, and the judge immediately wanted him taken into custody. We worked with the local state police. We were able to get him into custody fairly quickly. As part of that arrest, when they made it, there was some new charges that came. This is the way that GPS should work. We shouldn't be getting phone calls from law enforcement that says, hey, I know this suspect is on an ankle monitor, but he's not in the offender management system, and we don't know who's supervising the ankle monitor. And then that leads into a spiraling of days, losing a lot of evidence, losing a lot of time. And public safety is just, a mess when that happens. And that shouldn't happen. But Bowser is a good example of how it works. When all providers are in a system where law enforcement can put in the person's name or device number or any information they have on a suspect and see if that person is wearing an ankle monitor, who is monitoring that, what court ordered it, is this person violating those conditions? And that's how it works, and that's how it should work, regardless of who the provider is, regardless of who the court is, regardless of who the judge is. Law enforcement needs to have access to that.
Let's pivot to another case, DeJour McGuire. Obviously, he was, I think, released from jail and wasn't placed on the electronic monitor that was ordered. Is my understanding correct?
That is correct. And that was before the conversations that fixed Clerk Connect. And it is something that has happened in the past. We were able to talk with the jail, talk with the clerk, talk with the court. And again, that is something that is happening far and fewer between, because we are working to get that system to where this doesn't happen.
And so, like in a case like this, where was the breakdown? Was it with that long form problem that we talked about earlier? And
yeah, the court the court ordered it, and the jail, no one could see that it was ordered. The way the system was set up, the short form minutes did not include those conditions. Again, that situation has been fixed by the clerk, and now the jail can see those minutes.
So rather than like, having to read through the minutes, I mean, there can't be an alert like on the first page. I mean, we used to do this at JPSO, and it would appear in red, actually, that special conditions outlined below or something along those lines.
That would be a great option. We've even suggested that these orders be scanned in by the clerk inside the courthouse, and that allows those conditions to be visible before the paperwork is handed to the sheriff's office, instead of waiting for them to come back. The delay we've seen was anywhere between 3 and 7 days of that information being scanned in. So I know that's all something that the clerk's office is working on right now, and that is something that would really fix this. The actual capabilities in having it flagged, I'm sure there's a way to do it, and I'm sure they're looking into that as well.
Yeah, because, I mean, 3 to 7, a lot can happen with an inmate within 3 to 7 days, right?
Yeah. And in fact, in the Bowser case, it took 3 days. He went to court on the 13th. Nothing was scanned in until the 15th. And that's one of the examples that we used when we were talking with the developers and with the current clerk on how, what can happen in those 3 days, 2.5 days. It leads us to a public safety issue, and public safety can't depend on bad paperwork or gaps in the system.
So when we talk about electronic monitoring, there are a lot of obligations that you have as the provider, right? You provide the equipment. You got to make sure that it's operational, like any other piece of equipment. It happens, sometimes it goes down for whatever reason, lose connection. What is your obligation once that happens?
Well, there's an obligation for providers to report all exclusion, battery level dying, or communication losses to the court within 12 hours of those happening. And if that doesn't happen, then the provider can be charged. And that was very important to us. In the city of New Orleans and across the state, there were so many victims being victimized, killed by offenders because providers were not reporting those violations. And the St. Francisville is the one that really triggered me when the First Circuit Court of Appeals came back and said they were going to overturn that indictment because there was no law that said providers actually had to monitor. And that triggered me in a way that if there's no laws, what do we need to do? We need to write some laws. And we went straight to the Capitol to say, we can't let this continue to happen. We need to make these providers responsible to every offender that they are releasing from the jail. And that's what OMS does. OMS allows that these providers that are accountable to those that are watching and that the judges that are responsible for watching these violations, it allows all of that information to be in one place. Now we can tell which entity was actually violating what was happening, whether it was the offender wearing the device, the provider not reporting violations, or the judges not responding to those violations, which, by the way, really does not happen anymore. The judges, ever since the Nicholas Marana case, the judges are very adamant about making sure that if someone is violating, they are being brought in. The only issue or gap that I see is not every provider is in the offender management system, so the courts does not have real-time violations in their courtroom. They can't just, in the offender management system, they can just pull up an offender and see everything that provider has, every violation report, every alert that was sent, everything is available. Any communication that the court sends to the provider and the provider responds to, or the provider sends to the court, is right there in one screen. And this should be the way it is because better information leads to better decisions, especially in public safety.
Well, why is it that we would use a company that's not utilizing the offender management system? Why would we do that?
I mean, at this point, there's no active list of providers. Not that every criminal justice.
Well, I mean, we haven't educated the judges to ask the question of these providers.
We have, and some of the clerks. Some of the clerks in the court system use it every day. And they say it's a tool that they need, and they wish that every provider was in it. Law enforcement, when I speak with any level, I mean, you have to understand that your local, your state, and your federal law enforcement agencies all use the offender management system. I probably get 10 to 12 calls a week saying, hey, I'm not pulling anybody up. This guy, I know he's a suspect. I know he's wearing an ankle monitor, but when I put him in OMS, he's not there. And then we have to go down this trail of, because it's not a provider that's using the system, let's see what we can do to help you. And that just leads to too much time being wasted.
So there's no legal requirement that electronic monitor provider be an OMS. An OMS.
Correct. That's correct.
And we don't do it by court rule. The Orleans Parish Criminal District Court, by court rule, that they cannot assign a case to a company that's not an OMS. Why wouldn't they pass that rule?
I spoke with the court administrator's office. I was advised that we need to go through City Hall. So I'm working right now to speak with City Hall. Councilman King has given us a date for a meeting. We're going to go and speak with them. We're going to explain to them how important it is, and that New Orleans has a real opportunity to lead.
And I don't mean to interrupt, but we're running out of time. But Jill, how onerous is it to get into OMS? It can't be that difficult, right?
It's not difficult at all. In fact, the law enforcement aspect of it, even though they can dig deeper, there's a public view. The public view has over 2,000 offenders in it. And before a provider goes to the jail and installs an ankle monitor, they would put that information of that offender into the system. The minute they hit submit on there, that information is available to law enforcement. An email goes to the jail, goes to the court, goes to the DA, the bonding company, and if there's a victim, to the victim. That way, everybody in the system knows that this person has been put on ankle monitor, who is supervising that device. And that way, if anything happens in between them being installed...
Who picks the provider? Who picks the provider? At what point in this process is a provider picked?
It's whatever provider shows up at the jail to put it on.
Well,
but
who calls them? How do they know inmate ABC gets an ankle bracelet or an electronic monitor?
Many times it's the bail agent. Sometimes it's a Google search. It just depends on how the family member of that defendant.
But that's got to change. I mean, there's got to be an approved list of where they meet a minimum set of requirements, because we got people's lives depending on this stuff. I mean, this is craziness.
The law says that every jurisdiction is supposed to have a list of certified in writing providers, which means the providers sign responsible, saying that they know the law, they're going to follow the law. This session, we're actually going to work on getting licensing statewide for providers. And that licensing will allow the state to know who the providers are, make sure they're not convicted felons, make them hold on to their information. The state police will be able to investigate these providers just by walking in and saying, show me where your file cabinet is. None of that is available right now. You could be a convicted felon, that has no experience at all, no training at all, no classes, no nothing, and become a GPS provider. And I hope that we're far from this, but in recent times, you could actually go to the jail with a letterhead, with an ankle monitor with no guts in it, put this ankle monitor on and leave that jail, and it could be your fellow gang member. There's really no rhyme or reason to it. We need to make sure that doesn't happen. But New Orleans is leading the way. It has a real opportunity to lead with smarter and more accountable supervision. The digital jail is a thing. The digital jail that New Orleans is running is better than anywhere else in the state of Louisiana, and for that matter, across the country. We just need to do better. And the offender management system can do that for the city. And it will help in all aspects of the criminal justice system.
This is a crazy story, I'm telling you. I had no idea that's how disjointed this whole thing was. I mean, I don't think.
And like I said, we're leading the way in New Orleans, and New Orleans it's really doing better, and the information that is available through the offender management system closes those gaps and standardizes how supervision activity is documented. It makes sure we don't have any delayed or incomplete reporting that puts public safety at risk. And again, public safety decisions are only as good as the information behind them. And OMS ensures that information is timely and accurate. And that's what we want to make sure.
Absolutely. Jill, thank you so much for all that y'all do. I mean, obviously, we have a little bit ways to go because this is incredibly important to get this right from the very beginning. Jill Dennis, Director, owner of Assured Supervision Accountability Program. Thank you for joining us today. Truly appreciate it.
Thank you.
We'll be right back. 504-260-1870 on the Oakland Heart Jewelers Talk and Text line. Stay with us.